In this video, we're going to look at how you can create a web app that allows you to choose a PDF, convert that PDF into a DOCX file, and then load it into the browser in a format that is fully editable. And we're only going to use Apryse technology to do this, which is great because it means you only have a single vendor to deal with. Let's start off by creating a simple app using npx create next app. This will lead us through a series of questions such as the name of our app, and we'll call it PDF to DOCX next. And it will ask us about TypeScript and other options. We'll just accept all the defaults. That will take a few moments, so I'll speed it up. Great. Now let's navigate to the new folder, and at this point we can actually start our app using npm run dev. We can use a browser to open the project, and we can see that we have the default Next app running. We're not going to use that app, but it's useful to know that our environment's set up so that it can run. Okay, now let's go into Visual Studio and install the Apryse WebViewer using npm install pdftron/WebViewer. You could use Yarn if you preferred, or a different package manager, but I'm using npm. Now we need to copy the Apryse WebViewer core and UI folders from Node modules into a new folder which we'll call libWebViewer within the public folder of our project, so that they're available at runtime. We're not going to use the default code that was created in Page.js, so we'll select all of that and we'll replace it with our own code, which allows us to instantiate and mount WebViewer within the web page. We're also going to take the instance object that's returned when the WebViewer constructor promise resolves, and we're going to store that within a state variable. This allows us to access the API later on. We also need to replace your license key with a real license key, but you can get a free trial one from the Apryse website. Now, if we restart the server, we can see WebViewer running within our app. It's not very exciting at the moment though, because there's no file opened. We could have set an initial document or added a file picker, but we're going to do it another way, illustrating how you can interact with the WebViewer API from an external button. First, let's add a file input element into the return. Now let's add a function handle file change to deal with when someone chooses a file. When that occurs, we're going to store the file into the state variable setFile, and we're also going to use it to update the loaded document within the WebViewer instance. Now let's save that file and restart our project. And now in the browser, we have a button which allows us to choose a file. In this case, one called Waiver, which is being loaded directly into WebViewer. So far though, this is only a PDF being shown in a PDF viewer, and we could have achieved the same result using WebViewer in a Vue, Angular, or even vanilla JavaScript app. Let's now look at how we can use a server action. There's a lot of things that we could do within the server action because the Apryse SDK, which we'll be using, is extremely powerful. We're going to get it, in this case, to take the PDF file and convert it into a Word document. First, we need to install the Node library that contains the Apryse SDK, and we do that by using npm install @pdftron/pdfnet node. Converting a PDF into an Office document requires us to download an additional module called Structured Output, so let's do that now. We can find a link to it on the Apryse website download page, so click on that to download it, extract the contents, and place them in the lib folder adjacent to the WebViewer files that we copied earlier. Now create a file called actions.js, and it will be here that we define what we want to happen in our server action. We need to add some code to this file, and I've copied it from the GitHub repo that goes along with this video and the associated blog. You can find a link to that repo below this video. The important parts are, it specifies use server. It's then got a function called convert_to. Within this function, the file object is extracted from the form data. That object represents the PDF, which is then converted into a DOCX file using the function convert_to_word, which is provided by structured output. We need to specify a license key for this as well, And this is a server license key, not a WebViewer one, but it's still free to get one from the Apryse website. Converting the PDF to Word creates a temporary file. Now we can't send a file back as a response to a server action, so we need to take that file, convert it into a base64 encoded string, which we can return, and then we're going to use unlink to delete the temporary file to clear up after ourselves. That's all great, but if we run the code at the moment, then we'll get an error when we try to actually convert the file to a DOCX. And the error is somewhat obscure because it says we have no DOCX file. What's actually going wrong is clearer if we look in the server logs, because it says there's no DOCX file because add-on couldn't be resolved as a module. The underlying problem is the way that our project has been bundled. The add-on module that is being spoken of is part of PDFnet, but when Next is packaging it, it repackages the module into a way where it can't be found. That sounds complicated, and it is, but the solution is surprisingly simple. We just need to modify the next.config file and specify that pdftron/pdfnode is a server external package. At the same time, you'll probably want to change the body size limit for server actions up to something like 4 megabytes. The default's 1 megabyte, and files larger than that would fail when you try to convert them. Finally, we just need to tie everything together. So let's create a button which says convert to docx, and create a handler so that when the button is clicked, we'll take the file object, create a new form data object, add the file in, and then send it to convert to, which is specified as the action we've just created. When we get the response, it's going to be a base64 encoded string. So we need to convert that back into a blob, and then we can pass that to WebViewer instance.ui.loadDocument, which will result in our new docx file being loaded. Furthermore, since we've specified enable office editing, the document will be loaded into the docx editor within WebViewer. So you now have a fully editable docx file that you can work with and edit just as you would with any other docx editor. For example, you can change the font that's in use, or change the color, or add in new lines or new text. You can even add bullet points or numbered lists that will correctly renumber as you edit the document. In fact, it does a huge range of things exactly as you would expect from a high-quality docx editor. You can even save this file now as either a PDF or docx, depending on what you'd prefer. I hope you found the video useful. If you have, then click on subscribe and you'll hear about any new videos as we create them. Thank you for watching. Catch you next time.